Welcome to Tuesday Night Live, and here we go again for another week, and I'll hand you over to Peter. How you going, Peter?
Thanks very much, Phoenix, and welcome everybody to another edition of Tuesday Night Live of the Big Footy Crowcast. Great to have everybody along tonight. Don't forget we're live and interactive. Dare I use that word and not sound like 5AA, but anyway, we are interactive. You can send a message to us. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. We're happy to take any input at all. And it's just great to have you along. And we're looking forward to having a big show tonight. We've got our regular panellists for a Tuesday Night Live edition. We've got with us Nikki, Macca, and Phoenix. How are we all, everybody?
Very good, thanks.
Yep. Good on this end.
great to have.
I don't think they're any good at all, actually.
Great to have everybody along. Nikki, you sound much healthier than you did last week, so that's good to hear. And Macca, I know you've been under the weather as well, so good to have everybody here and healthy for a Tuesday night. Heaps to talk about.
Just cold.
And maybe I'll be professional this week, and I will actually introduce our first segment of the evening, which is Nikki's News.
Oh, shit, caught me on the hop. Bloody hell. Hang on.
That's what you get for being professional. I think it's much better when we're just a rabble, really.
Oh, that was any different?
I think when we try and be professional, things just don't quite work. Well, this is possibly going to be touched on a little bit later in a certain segment, but yeah, Luke Beveridge has proved himself to be quite a hypocrite once again. But I would be interested just to see how you guys think about this as to whether the club should have kept it in-house, or is it something they should come out and say when there's a bit of a disagreement between players and the media start sniffing around within their own team, and when a team has actually decided to put penalties in place against players, etc. So in this case, it was Tom Boyd and Zane Cordy who decided to get in a bit of a punch-up because, well, they got a bit drunk and Zane said a few things what I think a lot of Bulldogs players are talking about considering Tom Boyd's very large contract. So I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about that.
I think it's a pretty easy one, really. I think something like that is always going to come out, and I think the most sensible thing is to put it out there and just say that look, a couple of our boys got into a little bit of a disagreement publicly, and we don't approve of that, and as a result, they're just going to get a bit of a penalty. And in other words, play it down a bit, but put it out there by volunteering it. The only time you would keep it quiet is if you were 100% sure that it wasn't going to come out.
I think that's spot on, Macca, and I actually think it's pretty arrogant in this day and age of the Bulldogs to have thought that it wasn't going to come out. And I thought it was particularly arrogant of the Cockwomble himself to come out in a press conference and start talking about reasons why Boyd's not being selected, and actually just let's call a spade a spade. He was just lying, and that really is what I think more than anything embarrassed the club and made him look like a tool. Was the fact that he just lied about it, and that is to me just breathtaking arrogance in this day and age when there's always every chance that something like that is going to be found out in the end, even if it does take some time. So just pretty dumb and pretty poor media management.
Not only that, but I mean they always put themselves up as very much a members club. They've drawn on their members heaps to keep the club afloat over the years, and I think when your membership and your your fan base are going, why isn't Tommy Boyd getting picked? I think the club actually owes it to their own members, let alone the rest of us, to be open and upfront with them. So, I mean, if the Crows did that, I'd be a little bit annoyed at the club that they weren't being upfront about something.
Look, you know what, I just think they're just a really irritating football club.
Yeah, they are.
Look, and Beveridge is the most unlikable guy in football, I reckon.
He's certainly up there, Macca.
And the thing is that so much now, as you said with before about their members, and they really want to be the member club, and fan engagement is such a huge thing for the AFL. So to try and keep things away from the fans and not be upfront, I agree with Macca that, to me, in terms of looking at it from PR point of view, you want to get the story out first and you want to control the narrative, not have it break like it did, which then gave particular journalists who do have a beef with the club to have some nice little ammunition to have a go again. And I think that's just what's perpetrated it longer over the weekend.
The other thing too is that bloody hell, we got someone posting in chat under Crowcast. That must be Scorpus.
Yeah, Scorpus. Hey, Scorpus.
So shit, I did that without any hands. That doesn't happen often.
Well done.
What was I gonna, like this whole open-ended thing as well. I think they're just having a bit each way, really. I mean, how can you suspend someone indefinitely and then sort of have them back at a whim? It seems to me to be, I think they're pulling shit out their ass, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Well, that's where it comes from.
Well, the kind of the big talking point over the weekend, a lot of it was around how we've had these 3 weeks with the buys, and we've only had 6 games, and they've been spread out because they've all been having the Thursday night games. And what it's meant is, like on a Sunday, which traditionally has a couple of games on, we're now only having 1. And I think people have just been a little bit frustrated because some of these games have not been good, and you have no other alternative if you want to watch footy. That's all you've got. You can't change over to another game.
Well, we've also had, I think there was a day last weekend, I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure there was a day where there was no free-to-air footy on at all. And I reckon it was a Saturday. And it was because, obviously Fox get free dibs to a couple of games every week. So I think it was last week.
I reckon you're right.
Yeah, because Channel 7 put the SANFL game on. I mean, that's just ridiculous. To have no free-to-air AFL games on a weekend day is just absolutely disastrous.
I think it's a bit whingy by some people in respect of what games are on and all the rest of it. I mean, I sat down and watched the Hawthorn Gold Coast game, and I was like, you ever have that experience where you go to the movies and you're actually not really sure what the movie's going to be about, and because nobody's actually talked to you about it, you actually really enjoy the movie. That was a really good game of footy. And I don't know why people would be complaining about that. I mean, it was competitive, a lot of good highlights. Gold Coast were in it up until halfway through the last quarter. Hawthorn pulled away, which is probably a little bit predictable. But, for 3.5 quarters, it was a really good game. And so, I think that there's probably, you look at it in the fixture and you think, Hawthorn Gold Coast in Tasmania, they're not interested. If you'd actually sat down and watched it, it was quite entertaining.
Yeah, I did. I watched that game, and it was a good game to watch. And Gold Coast made a real game of about 3 quarters, and it was, as you said, it was very, very watchable.
They're, digressing. They're all right. The Gold Coast. They will torch Brisbane this weekend, and they they were a pretty good side at the start of the year. They were decimated by injury, and it's just a shame they've only got one more game against the top eight side. Up there at Metricon. Otherwise, I think that they would be a really, really tricky proposition for any team going up there at the moment because they've got all their players back. Gaz is just starting to come into some really good form. When I say all their players back, the Swallow and O'Meara are still
and
gone.
Sard.
Sard, but he's still to come back, I think, reasonably shortly. But other than that, they've pretty much got a full deck, and they're a different team, and they had that game against Hawthorn just to get themselves moving, and then they look really good against St Kilda, and as I said, they'll torch Brisbane, and they'll have a good second, last portion of the year.
Yeah, agree with that, Peter.
Yeah, see, I wasn't too bothered about it, but I thought it was quite a big discussion point that had been going on, and people were trying to throw up some different options of ways to do it, and I think there were 2 suggestions. Well, it was the same suggestion from 2 different people on the board where virtually you'd have a game on, just one game each night, but with one day off during the week. That's just too hard in terms of, I mean, we can deal with a Thursday night game, but you've still got to work through the breaks in terms of the players and recovery, etc. To move it even like till Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, that clubs just won't be up for that.
Yeah, see,
I think
Scorpus has just put on the chat that our game on Sunday last week, which is the only game of the week for the day on Sunday, wasn't shown on free-to-air in Melbourne. So, I mean, that's diabolical. You can't have that.
That's ridiculous. No, I was just going to say, Nicky, look, I think you're absolutely right to raise it, and I've read and heard a bit as well that that there's been quite a bit of consternation about this the buy setup. But I just think sometimes I don't know whether it's just we just seem obsessed with just bloody whinging about stuff, and I just reckon that there's been I mean, Phoenix absolutely agree. Shouldn't be in a situation where we don't have free-to-air coverage of games, but generally speaking, I thought that those games have been spaced out reasonably well. There's been plenty of decent games to watch if you want to watch them, and all in the time slots that you would not. It just means that instead of sort of 3 games on a Sunday, which who actually sits down and watches 3 full games on a Sunday anyway. You've got one. I don't know. I just reckon we just whinge.
That business of not having a game on a Saturday, that really is caused by the AFL itself with its programming, because they had the Thursday night, the Friday night, and from a South Australian point of view, if they'd had one of Port and one of us playing on the Sunday, then you'd have a game on the Saturday and you'd have a game on the Sunday. But they chose to put both Adelaide and Port Adelaide on the Sunday, which left, and as Seven's only got the right to 4 games, there's no game left for the Saturday, and the reverse must hold for Victorian teams.
Yeah, and the problem is that they do the fixture, and then Fox pick their game of the week or their couple of games a week that they want exclusive. So, they don't even do the fixture in conjunction with the media partners to try and work out who wants what game. So. It must be incredibly difficult to do the fixture, but there's a few kinks to be ironed out, and I don't really like the bye being spread over 3 weeks. I reckon they could do it over 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's my only thing. Is I think it needs to be 2, because that's what we had last year. It was 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2's enough. I think you're right, Phoenix. 2's enough.
I agree.
There you go. Message AFL. Listen to the Crowcast. We've solved your problem. Go back to how it was.
Any other bits and pieces, Nikki?
Well, the other talking point is the AFL's raised the whole thing again about a mid-season. Originally, it was a mid-season draft, and now they're talking about a mid-season trade period. And Jordan Lewis, I think, kind of hit the nail on the head tonight, was that if you're going to do something like that, because all of a sudden players are going to leave one team halfway through the season and go to another, the fitness staff, etc., are working hard in order to get players right, particularly for the end of the season. So to lose them halfway through, it just doesn't really work in terms of your team balance, and it upsets everything like that. I just think the whole idea is a bit stupid.
It's BS, and it's BS on the back of what the AFL is obsessed with doing, and that's trying to imagine itself as an international sport where you get situations like soccer, where they have transfer windows at different times, and you're talking about a game that has 20 different leagues, each league with another 5 divisions underneath that, and so players can end up in different countries, in different leagues, in different divisions. Same in the US, you've got different conferences, and these are massive international concerns in terms of their sporting organisations. And the AFL is just one competition. You've got this ridiculous notion of one player starting off the season with a particular club, and then halfway through the season just jumping ship to opposition in the same league. I don't know. It's ridiculous.
I reckon
the clubs won't cop it.
What I'd like to do
There's
is
your IP.
I don't mind the mid-season mini draft for unregistered AFL players, but I reckon what they should do if they want to do that is actually reduce the list down to, I don't know, mid to high 30s or something. and then allow teams to actually pull players out of the state leagues on a needs basis. So, say you got a long-term injury to Sammy Jacobs and we didn't have a backup ruckman, you'd pull someone out of the SANFL and you'd give him, say, a 6-week contract or something. And there was, limits and conditions on all of that. But they could doing a mid-season draft with the current list sizes means that you'd have to effectively delist someone mid-season. So I reckon they should drop it down to 35 and allow, rather than a mid-season draft, just allow them to do temporary contracts to players out of the state leagues.
Now, I'm opposed to either a trade or a draft because if you do your planning for the year at the beginning of the year, not even at the beginning of the year, you do it at the beginning of from the 1st of October onwards when you do the trading and the draft. And if you don't get that right and you haven't got reserves there to cover positions, well, I think that's your problem. And I don't see why you should get a second go at it. I mean, you take Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide delisted 2 young ruckmen at the end of last season. The fact that they haven't got a proper ruckman now, that's their problem. And I can't see why they should be allowed then to have another crack to get a ruckman to improve their season. I think, as you said, the lists are pretty big. There's plenty of opportunity there to plan for contingencies, and that's what you should do.
There's a different angle to that though, Macca, because you've got players on lists at the moment who are essentially just there for insurance. And from a player perspective, I don't know, I mean, I guess they get paid well and yada, yada, yada. But to me, I'd rather see the last 5 or 6 on an AFL list not actually be on an AFL list and be able to run around in the SANFL and be available, or state leagues in general, and be available to all clubs on a needs basis. They've probably got a far better chance of getting picked up, even on a temporary basis, and then perhaps string a couple of games together and put their hand up for drafting the following season on a rookie list or something like that. But you've got a lot of players stagnating at the tail end of an AFL list, and it actually kills their careers.
You're suggesting, Phoenix, that we do away with the rookie list, perhaps?
Oh, no, I just think the main list could be cut down so that you do have blokes that are either in your best 22 or around about the mark. So most teams will play a maximum of about 35 players in a season. So I don't really see how you need more than 35 players. And the reason they have it at the moment is for these contingencies, which is great for the club. And like you say, Macca, it allows them to plan unless you're Port Adelaide. But it doesn't. I don't actually think it helps the careers of those last 5 or 6 players. And I think it'd be much better to have a condensed list and be able to trade in temporary players on a needs basis. I think it would be better for the players.
Yeah, but I think Brisbane have already used 38.
Yeah,
but that's a pretty that's actually a good example, because 38, and I dare say Gold Coast would be close to that number as well. That's a horrendous number. But if you look at the Gold Coast Suns, because of the high number of injuries they've got, they've actually been decimated. Their season is over after about round 5. So it affects their marketing, it affects particularly in that emerging market, it affects everything. It puts them behind the 8 ball, and financially it puts them behind the 8 ball. Whereas if they had a list of 35 or 36, but then they lose 2 key defenders, to be able to dip into any of the state leagues and pull out ready-made players probably means that they're still in the hunt, rather than having to play kids that just aren't ready yet.
Well, I'd certainly prefer it to come from a state league than to have trading in between clubs.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And because I don't think that's acceptable. But to do that, you would have to cut the list back, maybe 2 or 3 positions. And maybe you do have that, where you cut your list back by 2 or 3 and you've got the right then to get 2 or 3 out of the state leagues. But I really don't want to see trading between the clubs, because you're passing on intellectual property at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with that.
that's my issue with what you're suggesting, Phoenix, is that you're saying, oh, we get these ready-made players in. Well, they're not going to be ready-made because they don't know your game plan.
No, but physically they're ready.
They won't. Yeah, physically they're ready, but that doesn't matter when you've got an AFL team that relies on structures so heavily, which is the way the AFL is played now.
Well, put it this
I
way:
think the clubs would fight tooth and nail. No.
If you're Port Adelaide at the moment, would you prefer Jackson Tregrove playing at centre half back and having a decent ruckman who knows how to ruck, actually rucking for you? Do you think Port would be better off with Tregrove at centre half back and a decent ruckman rather than? I mean, and yes, it's their own stupid fault, but as an example, I think I get what you're saying about knowing structures and whatnot, but I think players need to be professional. If you look at the NFL, players will get drafted and they get handed a bloody encyclopedia of plays that they got to learn in 7 minutes, and they do it. Players need to be able to come in and learn game structures.
You cannot compare an NFL game structure. No, you can't, to an AFL one, because they are only on field for a very, very small amount of time. And when plays are called in the NFL, it is that one play. That's it. There are no deviations.
Yeah, but they've got to know. They've got to know a plethora of plays that could possibly be called. So they can't very well say, "Well, shit, I only got to page 9, so I didn't know. I don't know that play."
Yeah, but they don't come in immediately. They're not drafted mid-season either. They're the start of the season.
No, but they don't come in mid-year either. They get put on a 90-man pre-season roster, and they're under pressure to. Yeah, but they're under pressure to make a 53-man list, and so they've got to hit the ground running. I think my point is that a ruckman, for example, he might not know all the midfield plays that they do, but he does know how to ruck, and if he's been rucking in the state league, he's physically able to do that. Whereas if you got a young kid who is in, like, say, for example, we got, what's his name?
Riley O'Brien.
No, the other kid we've got, the tall kid.
O'Brien.
Hunter.
Riley O'Brien.
No, Hunter.
Paul Hunter.
Yeah, so if we got Hunter in, he'd be just as, lost as anyone else. But at least he knows how to ruck. I don't know. It's a difficult one.
To me, then it just comes down to teams need to plan better.
And that's what I think. I agree with you. I'm with you, Nicky.
Well, certainly a controversial subject. We might just kick along and one we could argue about all night. But it would be interesting to see whether it comes in. I for one, hope it doesn't. So, but anyway, I thought we might just have a bit of a look at Sunday's game. Was really, really.
I thought you were going to be bloody professional tonight.
Yeah, I am.
Well,
I was just about to say.
Yeah.
He's given you the clue, Phoenix. No complaining.
I was going to say we should have a look at the last week's game. So let's throw now to Phoenix that he's very special.
And he's bat the dummy.
Oh,
it's gold. It's gold.
I'm going to go have a lie down. Here we go.
Walker elects not to fly. Ball is fisted down over the head of Jeddah. Now they need support. Lose it. Lynch gets the hand pass away. The kick for goal is good for Douglas. Douglas gets the first goal in the opening minute and 10 seconds for the Adelaide Crows.
Straight to Walker with his back to goal. Twist and turn a little. Had a second effort. It was good. Crouch will try and shape this one. There's Crows everywhere. Put Bell under all sorts of pressure. And they falter. And McGovern was there to lick the lips and put it through.
Atkins goes wide. Lynch can bounce his way to goal. One bounce. He can have a shot from 45. Drop punt's on its way. And he gets the goal.
He moved his body well, though. Now Sloane has an opportunity to hit up the skip. And Walker takes the mark. Eddie wants it deep. He wants it in the square. And what Eddie wants, Eddie gets. Eddie might leave it. It might sail through. Walker's bomb one. Senses an opportunity to get moving before the Demons defence can get set. Cameron can give it to Walker. He's got Betts. Betts is ready and waiting, and nothing they can do about it now. Here comes Ed.
He's held it for a long time. He got it eventually to Jacobs. Somewhat balletically, Jacobs turns, and now they go up towards Eddie at the back. And here he goes. He'll ease into goal. He'll cruise into goal, and he'll kick another one.
Douglas couldn't take the footy, gained some territory, and Walker took it, sends them inside again. If it gets through, it's good night, and it is good night.
Take them Back is Cameron. He sprints away. Through the middle he goes. Clever kick. Gee, that's a good kick. He's got Rory there. Sloane, little chip towards Eddie. Couldn't take the mark. He recovers the quickest, and will kick the goal. Across the centre, up towards the half-forward line. At the back was Walker, so too McGovern. Gets the hand pass away. They may get another snap at goal. This is Lyons, and he's got the goal. The clock continues to tick. Crouch goes over the top. Sloane gives it away to Walker. Walker, the look-away hand pass. Beautifully done. This could be the sealer, and it is!
It's beautiful work, Phoenix. I do actually really enjoy that as an intro. It's a bit of work there, and it is absolutely fantastic. So thanks for doing that. And it is a great way to entree into the game on Sunday. And I must say it was really nice. I had a little bit of zen about me on Sunday. I just never felt like, even 11 points down at halftime, never felt like we're in any kind of danger of losing that game. And I don't know, I just got a lot of confidence in that side at the moment.
It was kind of funny because Phoenix and I, when we were talking about it on Sunday night, we were just talking about how frustrating it was and, oh my God, it was bad and probably don't want to watch it. And then afterwards, I actually sat down and I rewatched the last half and I'm going, this is actually a really good game. We did actually play well. Yes, there were some shocking errors, but there were shocking errors on both sides. And I actually took that to be quite a bit of pressure that was on in the game that was causing those kind of errors.
Well, I found it a very, very enjoyable game to watch. I thought it was very good quality all round, except for our effort in the second quarter where we weren't particularly good in that quarter. But it was a good team effort by our boys, plenty of contributors, and it was good to see Brad Crouch improving with another game underneath his belt. His disposal wasn't 100%, but it got better actually at the pointy end of the game when it really counted. And of course, Matty just continues to play good football. I thought young Charlie Cameron, he gave some really, really exciting moments to watch. Jacobs, I thought, had a tremendous duel with Gawn, and while he might have lost in the hit-out department, I thought he certainly won in the round-the-ground department. And Sloaney, of course, very good game. Walker, very good game. Lever, possibly the worst game he's played, even counting from under nine upwards. I mean, I've never seen such a rotten, stinking game from a guy who's got so much ability. And Jake, what have you done, mate? You come on the show, you bow very well. Your next game, and then you fall apart. You better come back on the show again. And and I think Smith is not playing quite as well as he could either. But and I thought McKay played quite a useful game as well. But overall, I thought we had a lot of contributors. The forward line, I haven't mentioned them too much individually, but if you look at who got the goals, who got the possessions, it was spread right around amongst the boys. And I really think that we're getting our act together very nicely, and I think we'll tear Carlton apart this week.
Yeah, JJ had a bit of a mare. We didn't really talk about that, Nikki, on Sunday, but had very hard hands on Sunday.
Yeah, he has been nominated for goal of the week. So towards the end of the game, his hands, he got them right.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were very kind of flat a little bit. We kind of talked a little bit about whether it being the anniversary as to how that impacted on the way some people were playing, not quite at what the standard of what we expect. And I think, as you and I both agreed, Phoenix, it's not something we're ever really going to know. And the club's not going to come out and say anything, whether yay or no, quite rightly in that respect. But what did you think, Peter?
Oh, look, I just thought it was a good, even performance. What really impresses me, and I think I posted up something before the game started, and that is what's impressed me all year is the ability to absorb, to reset, and then to pull away. And I just have seen it too many times this year to have any cause for panic at all during that game on Sunday. And it was I can't remember ever being so calm watching a game of footy when we're 11 points down at halftime.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
Absolutely I had no thought in my head that was going to be anything other than a win for us. We just Full credit to Melbourne. I thought they played really, really well. It wasn't.
Yeah, they did.
A lot of people criticised the game for the standard, but I don't. This was not the game that we've had in the past against Melbourne, where they, you can sort of say, well, they drag you down to their level with sort of defensive play. They were just pretty good, and sometimes you have to accept that, your team's playing a good football side who are going to give a good account of themselves. And when they got on, and I've seen it a few times this year, Melbourne, where they've got on a roll and they've kicked 6, 7, 8 goals in a quarter. And I have seen them, blow teams out the water for a quarter. That's a nice bit of rhyming poetry there, isn't it? Blow teams out the water for a quarter.
You didn't know.
And they've done it a few times, and they did it to us. But I think I mentioned at half time, I said that, I really didn't think that they would be able to do, kick 8 goals in a quarter again. And the fact that they could do that, and we were still only 11 points down. The problem that other teams have against us is that we just keep scoring.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's a real problem for other teams because they just, they in that second quarter, Melbourne absolutely dominated us in every area of the ground. They still couldn't stop us scoring. And that's the problem other teams have.
Also, they couldn't kick 100 points, even with that 8-goal second quarter. And what did we kick? 2, 3, something like that? Wasn't that much.
Yeah, we kicked 2, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 2.
We still beat them to 100 points, which is kind of the KPI for winning a game. And so, it points to not only good offensive options, Pete, but also good defensive structures to be able to hold them after that 8-goal burst. It's interesting to me that the last 2 games that we've got over 100 tackles in a game have both been against Melbourne. They must bring it out in us.
And what is it with our last quarters lately? I mean, I think I read somewhere that in the last...
3 goals, 8.
3 goals, 8 in the last 3 games that we've given up?
4 games. In the last 4 games, it's been 3 goals, 8.
I mean, we've just in the last quarters, in the last month, it's just been phenomenal. You think of that last quarter against West Coast, that last quarter against North Melbourne, where we should have won by a whole heap. I think we kicked 4 goals, 10.
Yeah,
and then so I just I was just sort of sitting there having a cup of coffee and just enjoying the game and just waiting for it to happen, really.
Now, for me, I've mentioned this before, and we talked about it on Sunday night. Was it's in line with that? Is that I think that's what our game plan kind of is that we're making teams run and chase us, and because of the way, as Phoenix just said, they can't stop us scoring, and a lot of that is fast break scoring. We break teams by the last quarter. They're quite tired. But there's also another interesting point to this, and it's something I asked Phoenix to kind of cue up a little something that the club put a little clip out from the Crow Show around interchanges, is that we're actually we don't use as many interchanges up until 3/4 time as what our opponents actually are. So we've actually got more interchanges in hand for that last quarter. So it means we're getting our players fresher for that final run home.
Want me to play it?
I reckon we can play it.
All right, we'll play it.
They need to get their teammates off. They've had less rotations than the Eagles.
Interchange on game day, yeah, that's organised chaos, really. We have myself down there. I'm wired up in the box, getting instructions from coaches. We've also got one of our other staff up there who's sort of moving the board, telling me where players are. Players have a general idea of where they're going and what times they need to be coming, but as you know, a game of footy is pretty chaotic and things change. The aim is to try and keep speed on the game, getting our midfielders rotating as much as possible. Also our high half forwards, high half backs, we can't neglect them and leave them out there for too long, because if they have a player come onto them that's really fresh, it's really hard for them if they've been playing a lot of game time to play a player who hasn't had as much game time and is probably a lot fresher than them. The coaches sort of before the game and then the week leading up to it, the players know the general area where they're going to play, midfield, forward, back, but there's a lot of crossover between that and a lot of times you need to sort of almost make things up on the go. Players have multiple positions they can play, someone like a David McKay can almost play 4 or 5 different positions, and so throughout a game, at any one stage, he might play all 5 of those positions.
Picks up plenty of time and he snaps a goal.
90 rotations, it is a challenge as much as that you can't waste them. Probably the biggest change has been that players spend longer on the bench now, so rather than it being 90 seconds or 2 minutes, it's sort of 3 to 4, maybe even 5 minutes, and that's really hard for the players. They want to get back out there and play.
Back it comes, here's Laird, runs to 50, low ball, is it accurate enough? The crowd will let you know.
There's never ever a rule to say you must come off after you kick a goal. I think it's a bit of a thing that a player often gets told maybe 1 or 2 minutes before they kick the goal, hey, you've got to get off, as soon as you can. And I reckon that might be a bit of motivation to just run that little bit harder or that kind of thing. So when they come off after kicking a goal, that is 100% a fluke if you see it at Adelaide Football Club.
So that's actually Jared Wallace, who's the performance analyst for the club. And when I watched that little clip, there were a couple of things out of it that stood out for me, particularly around the whipping boy on the board of David McKay, finding out there's about four or five different roles that he actually plays, whereas we kind of think, oh, he's only playing on the wing. Well, no, he's obviously not. But that thing around the interchanges, to me, it was really eye-opening.
Well, yeah, I think the other thing that stood out a bit is the 5 minute. The player could be on the boundary line, maybe up to somewhere between 3, 4, 5 minutes before they can get back on again. And you can often see, not just in our games, but even in other games, that the players on the boundary is looking rather frustrated because he can't get back onto the ground. And, I think that is one of the things that I really have noticed this year. But that's good planning, as you said, Nicky, that when they come on in the last quarter, we've got heaps of changes to keep our players' legs very, very fresh, and which enables us to keep running and making them chase our backsides. I think it was a very interesting little piece of information, but it certainly fits in with what we've been seeing as well.
I reckon managing rotations has become a bit of because it must be a bit of a squeeze now with the 80 or whatever it is now to
90
to squeeze in. And I've noticed consistently in the stats time on ground, we have invariably the Crouch boys, usually Jared Lyons, under the 70% game time. So when you consider we got 3 midfielders usually per game in and around the 70% of game time, they must be fresh come the end of the game.
Oh, look, it's definitely an art. Look, I can remember years and years ago, back in the day, I was team managing a junior SANFL team, and there were 2 interchanges, and I was the interchange steward as well as team manager, and that for me almost melted my brain on any given Saturday. And there was 2 interchanges in a junior team.
Yeah, I can imagine. I wouldn't like to do it at all.
Absolutely horrendous. I think what also I think showed up is when I looked at that game on Saturday, I thought on Sunday, before the game, I thought, in any particular given game, the way that our functions, we only need to have an ascendancy for around about 10 to 15 minutes, and in that time, and it happened in the third quarter, and in that time, we just, really, really put the foot down and pull away. And when we do get that ascendancy, you can be guaranteed that we'll score 5, 6, 7 goals. And it's just brutally swift and just takes the air out of the ball, I think.
Well, the key will be to be able to do it against the good teams like Hawthorn and Geelong, the seasoned teams that are also very adept at killing momentum. Whether a Hawthorn would allow us to kick 4 goals in the first 5 minutes of a third quarter, is probably arguable. So, I mean, you're right, Peter. It's a definite quality. You'd like a more even performance across, and our second quarters over the last month or so haven't been all that flash. But if we can pull it off against a top 4 or top 8 team, then you start seeing it as a real strength. And we did do it against North Melbourne, obviously.
Yeah, on the money, Phoenix, and I reckon that the other thing that Peter mentioned before was our ability to, if we've been caned in a quarter by one of these teams, is to come from a bouncing back at them in the next quarter. In other words, as he says, reset and go hard again. And just as you were talking about that, we really have to be able to prove that against the very, very good teams. And one example may well be when we played Geelong down at that whatever that stadium's called these days, Simmons or Shell or somebody.
I think it's called Amway Stadium now or something, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a pyramid scheme.
Simmons.
Yeah, yeah. But when we play there, I think that's hopefully if we ever do get into a position where Geelong do get the upper hand, maybe for a quarter or so, that we do have the ability to bounce back and get back on top, and that's the teams that can do that. They win flags.
Very true, Mako.
Those early games where we lost because we couldn't stop the momentum of Hawthorn, the Bulldogs, even though we played crap, we were still in the game up until 10 minutes to go or whatever in the last quarter against Geelong. How much do you think that's actually helped us in going, okay, that's what they're doing, now we're going to implement it, maybe?
I think there's no doubt that there was a change after the Geelong game. We seem to have certainly taken a lot from that first part of the season where we played those top sides. So yeah, I absolutely agree, Nicky. I think we've taken from that, and certainly, we've Pikey's managed to manufacture a way that we can absorb and not let that have us deviate from our game plan and what we need to do to get ourselves back into it.
Yeah, I think we've got more composure now and probably a better understanding of the game plan that we did early in the season.
There's your C word.
Yeah, I wrote it down. I don't think if we find ourselves in the same position against Hawthorn, I don't think we lose from that position again. I think we're better organised now and probably a little bit more comfortable with what Pikey's implemented. So I think that plays a big part too.
Yeah, I think you're right. We really should not have lost the game against Hawthorn either. That was just a couple of silly errors. But the ability to, not even to get the opportunity to reset at a break, but even to reset during a quarter, I think is probably one of the most difficult things to do. But if you can do that, then that's when you set yourself apart from the rest.
All right, well, it was certainly a terrific performance and kept us on a nice little roll and got us up to fifth spot. So plenty to look forward to. So I think probably now, without further ado, we might, folks, go for a little bit of a cock womble. What do you think?
Are we allowed to have multiple winners of the same bloke?
Isn't it?
I like that song.
Yeah, very. And I thought we were beautifully in sync there too, Phoenix, so that was good.
I saw the hand signals.
Nicky,
I get upset every time we kind of stop. Well, I kind of forgot in the poll to put in about the Tom Boyd and the Bulldogs bits and pieces. We'll leave them till the end. So we kind of had 4. One of them was a bit of a giggle, and it did get the 1 vote, which I'm hoping it's from you, Peter, which was the bomb.
I gave him that out of support. It's like brotherhood. It's the bomb brotherhood. Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
So 2 votes only went to Jake Lever for having an absolute stinker of a game and costing Phoenix in Game of Crows.
Wow. I still haven't recovered.
4 votes. So we had very low voting, but it did go up late. My apologies. Was for Keith Thomas and Koshy for giving us more to laugh about in Ports in trying to say that they've got a top 4 list. When Robbo is laughing at you on AFL 360 and having a go at you, you've really become a bit of a cockwomble and you've got things wrong. But the outstanding one is not the Bulldogs, but it is, of course, as Macca did refer to him, the most punchable face in the AFL. Now, we don't condone violence, and please don't go and do this.
Hypothetically
but that was
punchable.
actually, yep. It's Luke Beveridge for once again showing what a hypocrite he is with his double standards, and the fact that his explanation was why they didn't want it to get out was if one of his kids are misbehaving, he's not going to go and tell his neighbours what they did before assigning the punishment.
He's a fruit
Honey,
cake.
They're not your kids. They're athletes under your charge. They're very highly paid athletes, one in particular. And, yeah, I'm sorry. The people whose money goes into your club that allows you to pay those salaries deserves to know what happened. So I think it's going to be pretty damn unanimous. It's Luke Beveridge once again.
A well-deserved award, yes, definitely.
I'm just going to put my hand up just for a moment and just wanting to nominate a chief executive who I think over the last probably 2 or 3 weeks has been a bit of a cockwomble, and that is Keith Thomas. Now, I think that look, as much as anybody that knows me knows my passionate, vehement hatred for Port Adelaide and anything Port Adelaide, but you have to admire and respect the fact that KT seems to have done a very, very good job there and always comes across very well, and seems to be respected within the industry, and good on him. But I think for me, when he started off, first of all, with that whole $50,000 business and actually accepting that from the government on very, very dubious and spurious grounds, and then during the course of this week, piping up and saying that his team are a top 4 side. I just really think that through the combination of those two things, the KT, you're a bit of a cockwomble.
Well, I think we could always give him an honorary cockwomble award.
He can be the little cockwomble of the week. He can be the little one.
Junior?
Yeah, the junior one.
He's a junior cockwomble.
I reckon KT's been drinking Kochi's bathwater, to be honest with you. Like either that or he's actually on our payroll and he's a double agent because bloody hell. But I love the way they're diluting that whole Port Adelaide culture with their crap because they're a shadow of their former self, that club.
Yeah, look,
see, they have to talk themselves up.
Yeah, but Nikki, once you can keep polishing it as much as you like, but it's still a turd, isn't it?
Turd, yep. Yeah, and you really, it's not fun to polish those things. I can imagine.
Why would you do it?
I can imagine.
I actually saw a Mythbusters episode where they actually proved that you can polish a turd.
Those boys would do it.
I'm going to find it and play you the audio next week because it was true. They got turd and they did some shit to it, compressed it or something or other, and then they polished it. And it looked like a billiard ball by the time they'd finished. It was great.
Don't let KT hear it.
Well, I do agree that they are very... there's some serious issues going on down at Port, Peter. And we're all looking from the outside. We know that list is not top 4. If you're top 4... then you would have been in the top 4. As somebody did on the board, they looked at their injury list, which is what they're now trying to use as an excuse. If you ignore Ryder, their injury list is exactly the same length as ours.
Oh, do we really need to have to go back to about halfway through 2014 and actually add up their wins and losses from midway through 2014? Because it's pretty
horrendous.
Ugly reading, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. The parallels between their years and where they are now and our Sando years, they need to get rid of Hinkley because he's just turned into Sando again.
Yeah, I reckon it's a cultural thing, though, that people seem to slip into. Like, KT was pretty impressive before he got to Port and in his first couple of years, but then he now he's towing the company line, and it seems to be a cultural thing down there, I reckon. It's bigger than one individual.
And that's the problem. When your chairman of the board comes out very publicly and then those comments are repeated ad nauseum, you can't hang him out to dry. You've got to back him up for the sense of unity which they need in order to keep the fans coming through the gates, because they need that money and they don't want to go back to the tarps. I think KT's hands are very tied in that respect.
Right, so let's so have we decided on Beveridge with an honourable to KT?
The little junior honourable cockwomble goes to Keith Thomas.
Can you be an honourable cockwomble? sounds like an oxymoron to me.
An honourable cockwombling numbnut. But the massive one has to be Luke Beveridge, once and for all, again. And he's probably going to take it out for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think we're engraving the annual award with Luke's name in it already, aren't we?
Good on you, Luke.
Yeah.
Just before we move on, very quick preview of Carlton before we have to wrap it up for tonight. Just want a bit of a shout out to PJ Crows, who's an excellent poster on our board, always comes up with good stuff. Sent me a message today just to let me know that he had some info that apparently in the Sandful on the weekend, one of our assistant coaches, Paul Thomas, who's normally defensive coach for our sample team, was actually given the reins to be head coach for that particular game and came away with a good win. So good to see
very
that
nice.
good to see that there's a bit of professional development going on for the coaches down at the lower levels, and they're getting a crack at doing some things like that. And good that he had a win as well. So, PJ Crows, thanks for that information. Appreciate it, and shout out to you. And always good to have people giving us information to use for the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Have you just broken the journalistic tenet of not revealing your sources, Pete?
That's why we're not journalists.
Do I need to edit this? Do I need to edit that bit out?
No,
that's why
we're not journalists.
We're not real men.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Stuff them. Let's reveal them all.
On that, Peter, last year we did that a couple of times, and that was something that Phil had implemented, and that he pushed through with Heath Uni, and Heath did that. I reckon it was about 2 or 3 times we actually had that through SNFL games. So one stage O'Keefe took the reins for a whole game. So it's great to see that they're still doing that. But I have to say, Amy Sparkles on our little chat had an interesting point.
Who?
Which was, we got a new commenter.
Amy Sparkles, that's a new commenter.
Rank the other 7 teams in order of who you want to play in the finals. Is that so? Do we want to take that on notice and think about that?
Nah.
Yeah, we'll take it on notice, I think.
Or we're going to go.
No, it's all right. We're going to have a crack. I
all
forgot
right,
about it.
Go.
Yeah, give it a crack. Why not? I reckon we don't want to play Hawthorn. We probably don't want to play Sydney. And
we can beat them.
We don't want to play GWS at GWS.
No, I'd play them away quite happily. I'd happily play West Coast.
I'd happily play West Coast.
Yeah, no, I play GWS when they're away.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So, our home ground.
Yeah.
Well, my two are Hawthorn and Geelong. They're the two that I prefer not to play. Hawthorn because they're so experienced, and Geelong because they're a pretty good side.
Okay, Vardy Magic needs to be... He's in trouble. He said Brisbane. We said finalists, not ones from years ago.
Just a bit silly.
For me, the one that I want to avoid is Western Bulldogs at Etihad. Don't want to play that particular fixture under any circumstances.
And we don't fear North Melbourne, do we?
Oh God, no.
No.
Not North Melbourne, not West Coast Eagles. I don't particularly fear GWS. I think that we showed that we can match it with them pretty well. In fact, we went to sleep in that game. We were at one stage, weren't we? We were over 40 points up at one stage in the third quarter and went to sleep, and still won by I think we still won by 4 goals or something. But anyway, so I don't fear them as much. Hawthorn, obviously, because they're Hawthorn. I think Sydney were okay against. But, yeah, I don't know why, but the Bulldogs just sort of worry me a little bit. Maybe it's just part of their general irritation that they seem to have, but just that concerns me. That fixture concerns me a little bit. And, of course, Geelong, strangely, just seem to be able to play their best against good teams. So I'll be interested to see how we go against them down at Amway Stadium. But I reckon they're a bit of a problem as well. But, yeah, Western Bulldogs are idiot for me.
I really want to play Geelong in the finals because I want to beat them and
yeah,
eliminate them.
There is that to it.
See, I like playing the Bulldogs in the finals because it's ended so well every time so far.
Well, history says it.
And they just get the shits up.
Yeah, well, history says we'll beat them. I don't fear the Bulldogs in the final.
Particularly on the MCG.
Well, on the MCG. I mean, I've got very happy memories of, 97 and 98, and the way they cry and squeal and afterwards, that's half the joy of it.
I reckon we should have mid-season traded Brad Crouch to the Bullies just so he could have a chat with Matty Crouch coming into the finals and just perpetuate that whole inside job myth that Luke likes to hang his hat on.
Well, there'd have to be an investigation.
Oh, yeah. The AFL's got to look into this. We can't keep that in-house.
Wow.
Just heading towards the weekend, does anybody have any serious doubts about Sunday? I'll actually be going over the game, so I'm looking forward to being there. I'll be hobnobbing in the MCC members, and I'll be not thinking about any of you.
Well, say hi to my mum and dad. They'll be there.
They'll be there. Okay, I'll
yeah,
have
but
a
they're
chat.
in general admission.
So it'll be that should be nice. But yeah, I really can't. Just looking at the way that Carlton have played this year, very, very, very good defensive setup, very good structures. I've done a really, really good job with them. They've only allowed 100 points against them on 4 occasions. And so that's a really good performance from them when you think of, some of the teams they play. They've only scored over 100 themselves twice. That was against Geelong and Port Adelaide. So I think you can see the kind of game that we're looking at. And I think despite how good they have been defensively, I just can't see them holding us. And that's what, in terms of getting their wins, that's really what they've relied upon. They've relied upon really, really good defensive structure. And I just can't see them holding us for any, they'll hold us for periods, but I just can't see that it being enough to avoid, a minimum, sort of 5-6 goal loss.
As long as they don't drag us down as they did Collingwood. The Collingwood Carlton game was a shocker to watch.
Collingwood aren't that good.
I know, and that's why I think that, Nikki, I think you said they only had 100 points kicked against them, 4 times, I think you said, Pete?
4 times.
This will make 5. We'll get 100
easily.
points. And I reckon we'll win by 10. I think Jacobs will have a day out in the ruck because I saw Cruiser only had 9 disposals and 16 hit-outs, and he's their main ruckman. Kerridge, I think, is starting to tire. He's not getting as much of the ball as he did before. Bryce Cribbs had a good year, and they're probably 2 of their very best players are in the back lines, and that's Doherty and Simpson. But if you look at and Cripps is pretty good on the ball, but the rest of the players, they might be giving all their all, but they're not quite good enough. And I'd be very disappointed if we didn't sort of win somewhere between the 8 to 10 goal mark, and I think anything less than that, we probably haven't done our job.
Well, we're going to have to start winning a couple of these games by big margins because we need a bit of a percentage kick up with the log jam.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I actually Carlton are a bit hit and miss, and I'm with you, Macca. I don't think they've got the class or anyone that can particularly get off the chain. But I'd actually be surprised if we won by 10. I reckon a good solid 5 to 6 goal winner would do me.
But we need the percentage, and it's about time we really poured it on, because we have the ability to do that. And it's no good doing it for 2 or 3 quarters. I want to see it done for 4.
Yeah, we need to put the foot to the throat.
Yeah. Hypothetically, because we don't condone violence.
Don't we?
No, we don't.
My specials for the punters out there, my specials are, Crows by margin and Gold Coast by margin. Both of those games, I think, will be fairly comfortable wins.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think we've hit the end, Pete.
Yeah.
I think we have. Is there any end music, Fina, or do...
Yeah, you can have some end music if you like.
It's been brilliant to have everybody with us tonight. We love doing Tuesday Night Live. It's good fun, and thanks very much to Nikki, Macca, and Phoenix. Phoenix, thanks for all your technical work. As always, it's been brilliant.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
See you guys.